I got that. Yes, hi, we'll try this again. Welcome to Reggie's Roundtable, session 2. And today I have a special guest, someone who I've appeared on LTV before, several times I think we've been on.
Multiple times over the years.
An old friend named Eugene Hamilton. And I think there's going to be a picture coming up soon of what he's been doing recently, but maybe not. That's his excuse for not being in town for a few days. He was up off what town in New Hampshire?
Seabrook, New Hampshire.
Seabrook, New Hampshire, and that was a pollock, a Jackson pollock, as he calls it.
Yes,
that's a rare species.
Looking for Jackson pollock. That's our fisherman line that we're looking for Jackson pollock when we head up north.
How many pounds was that?
Maybe like 18, 16, 18.
Nice.
Something like that.
Nice. How much of it did you bring back for me?
Well, I brought back 120 pounds of fillets. How much Reginald Cornelia will require is up to Reginald Cornelia. So, I mean, I can't, I only catch it, I skin it when it's time, and I deliver it.
And you deliver. Oh, well, then I'll have to do the cooking, I guess. I'll cook it up.
You're geographically undesirable, so you've got to pick up.
He lives in Hampton Bays.
No, I do not.
Which at my age, that becomes... I thought you were in Hampton Bays.
Mas entende cosa. I live in Quayog.
Quayog, oh.
Hampton Bays is Hampton Bays, and Quayog.
Well, when I learn to spell Quayog, I'll say
Q-U-I-O-G-U-E.
I know. The reason I have a show now is, let me get this out of the way, is that for years I have felt that there's a serious lack of my side of the political spectrum in the media, in the communications segment of our little society out here. And so at the urging of Haim Mizrahi, whose show I've appeared on a couple of hundred times, I'm now attempting to do my own show, and I'm realizing that it's not as easy as he makes it look. You see yourself looking up at the screen, and I'm pointing at myself, and it's very disconcerting. So that being said, this is Black History Month, but I would have invited Gene as many times as I could get him.
But anyway, not the first time.
But well, it had to be Haim. Haim's the guy that dragged me into all this, so the Haim had to go first. Now, what I'd like to do is continue a tradition that I started on the Haim Mizrahi show. Because we're going through tumultuous times, as everybody knows. People that I consider friends, even though they're misguided liberals, have suddenly turned pretty nasty. They don't want to talk to you if you don't agree with them. It's not like you can have a jocular disagreement. Things have gotten a little bitter out there. So this poem seems to me more than ever appropriate. It's called "The Land Where Hate Should Die," written by a history teacher in Massachusetts in about 1900, I'm sorry. His name was Dennis A. McCarthy. What else he wrote, I have no idea. The title of the poem is "This is the Land Where Hate Should Die." This is the land where hate should die. No feuds of faith, no spleen of race, no darkly brooding fear should try beneath our flag to find a place. Yes, let every people here, yes, every people here has sent its sons to answer freedom's call. Their lifeblood is the strong cement that builds and binds the nation's wall. This is the land where hate should die. Though dear to me my faith and shrine, I serve my country well when I respect beliefs that are not mine. He little loves his land who'd cast upon his neighbor's word a doubt, or cite the wrongs of ages past from present rights to bar him out. This is the land where hate should die. This is the land where strife should cease, where foul, suspicious fear should flee before our flag of light and peace. So let us purge from poisoned thought that service to the state we give, and so be worthy, as we ought, of this great land in which we live. And it is a great land, and let's hope we can get this back together more amicably than is currently the scene. So the reason I asked Gene is that he's got such an interesting background. Your father was, what was his rank in the major? A major colonel?
I think he was either major or colonel when he finally got out of the reserves.
Okay. And I met him that one time.
Yep.
It was a very,
That one time he came
I
to.
haven't forgotten it. It was a memorable occasion. And I think they're going to try and dredge up a picture of a guy who I think he resembles quite a bit. And there he is, Colonel
Oh,
Allen.
no. Oh, hell no.
Colonel Allen.
Oh, no, he doesn't look anything like my dad.
No, he looks the look. I don't mean the features. No, look at the look in his eyes.
Oh, no. I would pull up a fresh picture of Eugene Sr. and you
All right.
you will see what a hawk looks like looking down at a rabbit in the field. That gentleman is no, that's not Hamilton material.
Well, he has a website called Steadfast and Loyal. I've met him a couple of times. I really admire him.
Yeah, I'd like to meet him. I'd like to talk to him. But that picture was not reflective.
All right. I hope
but you know how I am, Reg. Okay, so I just
listen,
call it.
you can be as harsh and as cruel in your.
No. It was not cruel. I was being precise. Precision is a new operating software of my existence.
You have to remember where I met him. I met him in the dark recesses of the Talk House at a show. And we were on the little side of the corner of the bar over there, where
in the pitch dark, the man still is illuminated. May he rest in peace.
He was memorable. How many years ago was that I ran into him?
That probably was about almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
20 years ago, yeah.
Wow. Well, the reason I just want to get this thing about the Black History Month. One thing I hope we get to is what Morgan Freeman said not too long ago.
Oh, I agree with him 100%.
He said
that there shouldn't be a Black History Month. That
Black history
is American history.
Yeah, I have an art.
And
Go ahead.
This is one of these very interesting things, and because the study of the human brain, social engineering, and all that kind of stuff has been part of my lifelong studies. Delineating things in so many ways that things are done, people do not realize the subconscious impact that these things have. So if you create a subconscious impact, then that means it becomes an operating software that you're unaware of. And so therefore, people don't even know why they like this person or that person, or why they do this or why they do that. Even people take the present conflict going on in Israel. No, just take that one.
Okay.
You have two battling narratives, okay? You have a traumatized people coming out of World War II, okay, with a long history of traumatic experiences from time to time, but everybody has had them, okay? But coming out of World War II, and of course it's Black History Month, but there I am about to talk about the Balfour Declaration.
Let's not get too far.
You don't need rabbit holes. It could happen. So either way, so you have this particular trauma, okay? And so you have Lord Balfour, and he writes this declaration, and he's got his own agenda, okay? So if you're operating out of trauma and the awareness at that time isn't where it is now, you could kind of say, okay, wow, people did this, they did that, and they wanted this, and they wanted to feel safe, and blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to whip it around just like a GTO in a parking lot full of snow. It's Black History Month because it is for now.
Yeah, for now. Let me tell you something. One thing you said something right at the beginning,
Okay.
which is something that I want to emphasize. The greatest thing about this country is its ideals, it's in its avowed principles. Not that we've always looked up to them. Is the idea of individual liberty, individual rights. I don't like Black people as a group. I don't like white people as a group. I don't like anything. How can you brand anybody? So that's why my father didn't give me many of these heart-to-heart talks. He should have, because he was a pretty smart guy. But one thing he told me, he was a branch manager of a bank in Brooklyn. And he had clientele of every stripe. Brooklyn was a great place to grow up.
Yes, it was a melting pot.
It was
Phenomenal melting
it
pot.
really was.
Yeah.
They, and he would always tell me, listen, I would come home with some ethnic joke, mostly racism. Actually, racism was not even a part of it back in the early 50s in Brooklyn. But, and not for, I would hardly ever saw black kids until we went down to do term papers down at the Grand Army Plaza. But he would tell me, listen, kid, you judge people one at a time. And that's the thing. That's why I want to, I mentioned a book to you when we were setting this thing up that I really liked. It's not deep history. It wasn't the greatest history book ever written. Brian Kilmeade wrote.
We talked about that.
The President and the Freedom Fighter.
Yes.
So, and what I like to see, what I think I see is you experience being black. You lived it. You live it.
You take the ED off. Take the ED off.
You live it. And that was the same. And Lincoln cared about blacks in the sense that he knew that it was the Achilles heel morally and every other way for this country.
I read the same book that you read, and it took Lincoln quite a while because Lincoln would have let slavery keep going if the South had have agreed to not separate from the Union.
Well, yes, but he would no. They still would have tried to outlaw slavery. He said, "I would if I could do it by freeing all the blacks. If I could do it by freeing none of the blacks or some of the blacks."
Exactly. But that just summarizes my point. He wanted to maintain the integrity of the Union more than he cared about the freedom of black people. So therefore, Frederick Douglass. I read this ad nauseum because I was in that wonderful performance that I so enjoyed.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I forgot about it too. Look at that. Okay,
I think you advised me not. No, never mind.
I probably did say nah. Well, I mean, I said if you're coming to see me, you're not going to see me.
Okay.
Okay. So, but either way, life is filled with experiences. It was a great experience. I did lose my wallet, but that's neither here nor there. Okay. So I've drilled down on this whole thing a lot, and you might agree, and you might have some history that you know to tie into this. The Civil War and its agitation, the what would you call it? The angst that caused the South to really want to secede. From what I have read and am looking at and contemplating, there was an outside agitation. And if you follow this thread, if you can, of course.
I can follow it. I didn't say I'm going to agree with it, but
well,
I'm
you
going to
don't have to
follow
agree with it. But I'm just saying follow it, and then you can redact it. Okay, so you've got the British Industrial Revolution has happened. They've got their manufacturing. They've been getting resources from the New World. Hey, great, right? You know, it's like the South has slaves. They've got raw materials. The North is starting to manufacture.
That's it.
And the South is supplying Europe, England, but the North is also using those resources. Now you've got competition because the crux of almost everything, the crux of a lot of things, I'll say almost everything, it comes down to money, economics. And so therefore I believe that there's a strong possibility that the reason that the United States Civil War happened had nothing to do with the freeing of black people, but had more to do with economics.
No, I disagree. The Republican Party would never even have come into being if slavery had not been such an issue. It was preached from the pulpit. The Civil War, much like the Revolutionary War, was largely preached. The necessity of it, not the war, but the end of slavery, was preached from the pulpit in very strong ways.
Yes.
Now, Lincoln knew that
So you think that religious conviction is
Why?
the reason, you think religious conviction is the reason the Civil War was fought?
One of the main reasons, yes.
Hell no. I'm sorry, Reg.
I-
It's money. It's money, 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 money.
Well, I don't agree.
And well, you don't have to agree, but if slaves are property and that equates to money, and those slaves are producing revenue for you, and you're reproducing your revenue producing entities, then it's damn sure about money. You do not want somebody to, and they say it, they did not want their lifestyle to change.
That's, well, all right, I have.
You can agree on that.
That I agree with.
Okay.
In fact, Patrick Henry, as usual, an impassioned orator,
Like myself.
yes, talked about the evil and of slavery, even though, like Jefferson, guess what? He owned slaves. And he's almost torturing himself in his own argument. He's saying, I know this is wrong, but I am wrapped up in this system and I can't get out of it.
It's a system.
I understand that, Gene, but it also crippled the South. One of the reasons the North won the war is because they had manufacturing, which and railroads much more than the South. In fact, there was a rifle invented in 1850 something. Three of them: Sharps, Henry, and Colt.
Oh, the Henry rifle. That's a
Sharps
good,
and Henry.
that's a good rifle.
Yeah, it was, the Southerners called it that Sunday rifle. They load it up on Sunday and the damn thing shoots all week. And they had the muzzle loader. Do you know, this is an interesting and sad tidbit. The head of the Army Ordnance Department, do you know why they chose the muzzle loader over the breech loader, which could fire 15 rounds a minute as opposed to 3?
Why?
Because he was afraid they would shoot too much, they would waste too much ammunition. The
Wow.
war would have been over in a year because the North had three people producing these types of weapons. The South had nobody. They would at
So are
Gettysburg.
you saying they wanted the war to be prolonged?
No, he just didn't want the Union. It was they didn't want Union troops using up too much ammunition. Do you know at Gettysburg, when the Southerners got there with the big unit with Heath's division, and there was only a brigade of Northern cavalry there. But guess what the cavalry had? They had breech-loading rifles, and they were able to hold off that division until a couple of Union Army units came up, and then we know the rest of the story. But I thought we were going to I probably won't have time to read this from Patrick Henry, but I think I gave you the gist of it. It's this impassioned plea about how stupid and immoral slavery is, what a slap in the face it is to our avowed institutions. We say all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with inalienable rights. What about them? Anyway, so.
Okay, so even now, let's go past the Civil War. The Civil War is now over.
No, we can't do that yet, but go
Sure
ahead.
we can. Okay, because this is a limited time frame so far as the show goes. But okay, so we go past the Civil War, and I don't even know how we got here. But either way, we're past the Civil War. Now we're in a period of Reconstruction, right? So the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, and of course, doing that play, got some very interesting research on that.
By the way, we have another half hour to do this.
So
We're gonna do 2, so we can go a little deeper than, I thought, we're taking a long time getting off this, I know, but we have another half hour.
Oh, okay, good. Because that's what it's going to probably take
Yeah.
for me to break this down. No. So either way, when they talk about, because I hear, obviously I'm the man in the brown suit, so I hear, oh, well, why don't people do this and why didn't people do that and whatever. Historically, when people were freed and they did Reconstruction, the dynamism of African Americans, whatever the label is, freed slaves, they were off the chart. These people were now working for themselves. They had their own towns, they had their own things, and they were the people who had been doing all the work. They were the ones that were skilled. And that is when the Ku Klux Klan was
Well, it's
formed.
on the plantation. Well, not that many people owned slaves. It's like you know what the Southern soldiers' saying was? This is a rich man's war, but a poor man's fight.
It's always that way, but
Well-
it doesn't matter. The point is that whether it was a few, you had millions of people that were owned. Millions, okay? If you think of the numbers of people who came from Africa, or whatever
I think it was
points.
11 million whites and about 3.5 million blacks in the South at that time.
Okay, but think of the numbers of people who came over the slave ships that didn't even live.
That didn't get there.
The numbers of slaves that went to South America, I've read those statistics under the Portuguese, who at first did not believe in, like the North, reproduction. They just believed in replacement, work them to death and whatever. Of course, fortunately, because of the climate they were from, they weren't so great at picking coffee at altitude. It's like, so they had to go back to the Indians.
And now we're getting into the weeds.
No, that's not the weeds. No. It's, you've got two very, very different. There is a Latin African experience which is different than the one that happened in the North, but it's all the same thing when you break it down. Okay, so we'll reel it back. So when you have people who have an opportunity, and they did, they took the opportunity and they ran with it. But as soon as the government changed, the government and the support of Northern soldiers pulled out of the South, and then all of a sudden you have the birth of the Klan. Now you have people, you cannot succeed when you're being terrorized. And psychologically, you have all of the psychological trauma of 100+ years, if not more, of slavery, psychological trauma. So now you've traumatized the person psychologically, but you haven't taken away their dynamism. But to this day, the psychological trauma is still running, because that's why we have Black History Month on February.
Well, it's not just because of the original trauma. It's because we took so long. Look, we fight the Civil War. The North wins. Biden.
But
Lincoln.
you were thinking Douglas.
No. Lincoln issues the Emancipation Proclamation, and the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments are passed. Okay, now, it was never going to be an easy thing, integrating people, assimilating people who, the Europeans were living next to each other for centuries, thousands of years.
And they never got along.
Never got along. So now you have people that are different color, different culture, different background completely.
Well, they're not even attached to their background anymore because they've been so far removed from
No,
it,
exactly.
from their
But they
culture.
had developed their own subculture even within the slave system, but as limited as it was. And the initial efforts by the North were really good. All these teachers came down because don't forget the African Americans were kept illiterate for the most part.
On purpose.
Because once somebody learns how to read, what's going to happen? You're going to get a Black Patrick Henry.
Well, I mean, look, Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass got taught out.
The more I read about him, the more of his stuff, he was a brilliant.
Amazing.
Anyway, so what happened is we took way too long to get that. What we allowed was like you said, once the Northern Reconstruction efforts wavered under, first of all,
Grant was drunk.
Grant. It wasn't Grant's fault. It happened later than that.
No, I'm not saying it wasn't Grant. I'm saying that Grant did what he could do.
Well, he did.
But who is the next president after Grant? Because that was the guy.
It's this Hayes or somebody. They got
Rutherford B. Hayes.
They got politicians in there.
It was Rutherford
and they
B.
started
Hayes.
Now they started letting the good old boys who they were in the Senate. They were back in the Senate and the House now, and they're their buddies and they're drinking. They're going out, and you got it, we got it. And so the repression starts kicking. Do you know what the NRA? You know how the NRA was formed? It was formed by whites from the North getting arms to Black citizens because they were being terrorized by the KKK. The NRA was started by whites and to get weapons for Black people. So they take a bad rap on that all the time. In fact,
they should push the narrative, because that's something I didn't know.
So anyway, we got way too long. Do you know that the Woodrow Wilson, who up until about 10 years ago, I had no idea what a little villain this
He was a SOB.
There were mostly Republican presidents from when Johnson. Well, it was Lincoln. Johnson took over for a couple of years. He was an idiot. Then you had Grant. You had mostly Republican presidents, except for Grover Cleveland.
You mean Jackson? Do you mean Jackson or Johnson?
No, Johnson. Johnson took over from Lincoln.
Which Johnson?
his vice president. He was from Tennessee.
Oh.
And Lincoln picked him in an attempt to win over the border states.
Right.
And he turned out to be, he was basically a racist. He was a not a slaveholder, but he was a sympathetic to the South. But Lincoln thought that would get him those slaves, those border states, which actually it basically did. But now they made me forget these. So the federal civil service, and in the North, blacks were going to school way more, although most of the blacks still lived in the South. And the federal civil service was gradually integrated by Republican presidents. They were having civil service jobs, government agencies all over the country and in D.C. If you were African American, you could get a job. Wilson comes in. Do you know he absolutely stopped that? He got down to, I forget, he reduced the number of servants in his executive branch out to like people about to 1 or 10 or something, some ridiculously low number. And you know what he also did? As when he was president of Princeton University, he bragged that not one African American kid got into that school when he was there. Now, there's history. If that stuff had been taught, I think people would have realized what are we up against?
Okay. Since we're on one of my, I got it.
I'm just trying to give a broader.
No, it's perfect. I'm with you.
Oh wait, I think we're over.
We're done. Oh, good, because I need more water. That was the first
guys,
30 minutes.